Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our session number 2 of John Maxwell's Becoming a Person of Influence. How's everyone doing so far? You've enjoyed our mastermind groups and our classes that we've been in so far. I really hope that you've been able to get a little golden nugget or a little taste of what's to come. You know, in those sessions we kind of talked a little bit about what influence is. Influence is leadership, and leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. So we talked about when do we influence, how do we influence, why do we influence, who do we influence. What we're going to be going over here for the next couple of weeks is simply the 10 ways that influencers lead people. So as we get started, here's the challenge. As we get ready to go into the first several ways that we're going to look at for the next 30 minutes together, the challenge is this, or the question really is this for you, and you can go ahead and write this down on your notes. Simple answer, go ahead and do that now. The question is, who is the person or the group of people that you want to influence the most? Go ahead and write the answer down right now, maybe somewhere above session number 2. Because we are going to be talking simply about how to influence that person or that group the most effective way possible. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to go through about 5 out of the 10 ways that influencers lead. So hope you have your notes, hope you're ready to go. Let's get started. Influence number 1. The first way that influencers lead is number 1, they have integrity with people. An influencer has integrity with people. I love this quote here in your notes. I'm going to read it along with you here. In order to be a leader, by Dwight D. Eisenhower, in order to be a leader, a man must first have followers. And to have followers, a man must have their confidence. Hence, the supreme quality for a leader is unquestionably integrity. Without it, no real success is possible, no matter whether he is on a sections gang or he's on a football field, in an army, or even in an office. If a man's associates find him guilty of phoniness, if they find that he lacks forthright integrity, he will fail. His teachings and actions must be square with each other. The first great need, therefore, is integrity and high purpose. So, in your notes, here's the thing. Trust is the glue that holds people together. What is integrity? Integrity is doing what you say when you say you're going to do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, then that's when you need to show up, or you call and reschedule. Integrity is doing what you say when you say you're going to do it. And I really believe that trust is kind of the byproduct of a person who has stellar integrity. If a person is really trustworthy in their life and in things, then he or she must have an exceptional integrity within inside of them. Versus the other way. If a person is not trustworthy, then most likely their integrity level is pretty low. In your notes here, in the business world, it is acceptable to make mistakes, to lay eggs, even big ones. But the Center for Creative Research, in a significant study, learned that one thing that sounds the death knell for those who aspire to the top rung of the ladder is betraying a trust. Virtually anything else can be overcome over a period of time, but once trust is betrayed, moving to the top of the ladder is out of the question. That's how important trust is. There was a survey done of over 1,300 executives, and the question that was asked of these executives is in your notes, is this: what quality do you desire most in your team members? And these are of the top rung of the ladder of leaders. And the answer is simply this: 71% said integrity. Top leaders, the higher level, the most important quality they desire is integrity. Do you remember many years back the Tylenol scare, where they were pulling Tylenol off the shelves and recalling this? This was many years ago. Some of you might remember this, some of you might not have a clue of what I'm talking about. Well, in your notes here, some years earlier in their mission statement, they had a line saying that they would operate with honesty and integrity. This was Tylenol now. Several weeks before the Tylenol incident, the president of Johnson & Johnson sent a memo to all presidents of divisions of Johnson & Johnson asking if they were abiding by and if they believed in the mission statement. And not surprisingly, all presidents came back in the affirmative. The story goes goes that within an hour of the Tylenol crisis, the president of Tylenol ordered all capsules off the shelf, knowing it was a $100 million decision. And when a reporter asked how he could decide so easily and rapidly on such a major decision, his reply was this: very simple. I was practicing what we agreed on in our mission statement. Now that is the picture of integrity. A $100 million decision made because they wanted to follow what they said they were going to do in their mission statement. You see, it's always easy to do the right thing when you know ahead of time what you stand for. The question is, do you know what you stand for? So as a leader and as an influencer, we need to ask ourselves, what are some of the issues that can arise in my life that I need to look out for? Integrity issues. Well, we'll look in your notes and fill in a couple blanks here. We have 5 issues that we're going to look over. Number 1, does my organization have good written values? Do you guys have a mission statement? Is it written down on paper, your values? And going along with that, number 2, do the leaders practice and model them for others? So if you have them written down, are you doing them? Are you showing them to your people? Number 3, do I place the interest of my people above my own? That could be a major integrity issue. Number 4, am I accountable to others for my actions? And number 5, since I know myself best, do I like who I am? You know, I once had someone ask me, they said, hey David, this is a good friend of mine. He said, hey David, I'm ready to lead someone. Who should I start leading? I'm ready. I've read books. I've done my education. I think I just want to start becoming a leader. Who can I lead? And my first and only answer was this, because I didn't know any other people he could lead. I said, yourself. Yourself. I mean, here's the thing. If you wouldn't follow yourself, why would anyone else? Right? So before you lead other people, work on leading yourself. Too many people, I believe, out there have never bought into themselves. They haven't bought into their own values, their own mission. They don't understand inside who they are, what their personal mission statement is, what they stand for. And because of this, I don't believe anyone's going to follow them, because there's nothing to buy into. So start by leading yourself. Have your mission statement. Have your values inside. Do them and apply them to your life first, so that people can build trust, because trust is that glue. In your notes here, Abraham Lincoln said in this quote, when I lay the reins of this administration, I want to have one friend left, and that friend is inside myself. Integrity is key. Doing what you say you're going to do. Moving on to number 2. An influencer nurtures people. An influencer nurtures people. If you're an influencer, you have to have this in your life. See, in your notes it says the height of your influence upon others depends on the depth of your concern for them. Many leaders love their position more than their people. When that happens, they soon lose their position. Know anybody who's had that happen, where they're so obsessed with their position and moving up in the ladder, and they forget about people, and soon they end up losing their position? But here's the thing. Few leaders love their people more than their position. But when that happens, leaders will strengthen their position. So if you love people more than your position, I promise you, you will strengthen your position. Achievers care about people. Let's take a look at a couple of studies here that talk about high achievers versus middle achievers versus low achievers. And a study that was done here over from Telemetrics International of about 16,000 executives that says that the 13% identified as high achievers of the 16,000 tended to care about people just as well as their profits, while average achievers concentrated on production, and then low achievers were preoccupied with their own security. Maybe it was job security, maybe it was their personal insecurities, whatever it was. They said high achievers viewed subordinates optimistically, while low achievers showed a basic distrust of the subordinates' abilities. High achievers sought advice from their subordinates? There's a big one. If you're a leader, are you seeking advice from the people below you? While low achievers didn't. You get where we're going here, right? High achievers were listeners, moderate achievers listened only to superiors, and lower achievers avoided communication and relied on policy manuals. God help us the day when we rely on someone's policy manual over relying on someone's leadership. The key here is understanding and caring about people and nurturing people. So here's a few notes that we have put down, 3 of them to be exact. Number 1, nurturing people does not mean needing people. Really, David, I need people in my life. I have to have people around me. Maybe you don't. Nurturing people does not mean needing people. See, if you need people, you won't lead people. It's as simple as that. If you need people, you won't lead people. I'm not saying not to love people. I'm saying needing people. You always have to love. But if you need people, in other words, need what? If you need people's affirmation all the time, if you need people's approvals all the time about who you are and what you did, and if that's a constant need for you, then you will never lead effectively. Nurturing does not mean needing. Number 2, nurturing does not mean commitment to people. Love will find a way, indifference will find an excuse. I know that I can add value to people in 1 minute or 2 minutes or a short conversation and not have to even see the person again. Because if you can add value to someone, you could do it anywhere, anytime. But sometimes we have people hanging on our backs like monkeys and they won't get off. But that's not nurturing. When people are committed to us and we have to be committed to them, sometimes that is not nurturing. Love will find a way. Indifference will always find an excuse. Well, here's what nurturing does mean. Number 3, nurturing does mean loving people. Not needing people, but loving people. I love this note in this quote in your notes here. You will find as you look back upon your life that the moments when you have really lived are the moments when you have done things in a spirit of love. And I guarantee if I asked you stories right now, the stories that you would come up with just about general things would be because of love. The best times in your life, the most effective times in your life are because of love. Number 4, nurturing people does mean lifting people to a higher level. You've heard that expression before, that it's lonely at the top. Who's heard that? It's lonely at the top. If a leader says it's lonely at the top, well, let me just back up. A leader never said it. A leader never said it's lonely at the top. See, if you're at the top all alone, then here's the thing. No one is following you. So how about this? If you're at the top all alone, come on down from the top. Come on down and lift other people up with you. Connect with people, because that's what leaders do. Leaders lift people up. They bring people to another level with them. University of Michigan coach in your notes said, deep down, your players must know that you care about them. This is the most important thing. I could never get away with what I do if the players feel I didn't care for them. They know in the long run, I'm in their corner. If you want to learn how to influence and take your leadership to another level, influencers nurture people and lift people up and take them to another level. Point number 3 in your notes as we move on. Point number 3, an influencer has faith in people. Faith in people. You know, this is one of my favorite points, and you know, you have to, again, excuse me, I am a person of faith. I do make a lot of references to God, and that's my background, that's my ministry, that's where I come from. So if you're watching this and that's not who you are, just you know, follow along with me. I promise it'll get somewhere, hopefully here soon. An influencer has faith in people. You know, there was a pastor named David Cho in South Korea. And this pastor, Pastor David, he had, or he might even still have, the largest church in the entire world. He has over 380,000 people worshiping with him on any given weekend. It's the largest church in the world. And he was asked the question. He said that all great leaders have one thing in common. What is that one thing? And of course, me and other people would say, well, that would be leadership, right? Because great leaders need to understand leadership, need to understand influence. And he said, no. All great leaders have one thing in common. They have great faith. They have great faith. Look at any great leader out there and look at the faith that they exude to other people. A faith in what? A faith in their own vision and a faith in the people that's going to help them pull it off. And they believe that they can accomplish the big stuff. An influencer has number 3, faith in people. You see in your notes, assets make things possible, but people make things happen. So people make things happen. Here's a thought. Go ahead and all the people that follow you, that you lead, or whoever they are, put 10s on their heads. Put 10s. I mean, not literally smack them in the head with the number 10, but put a 10 on their head. In other words, talk to them and lead them and treat them like they were a 10. They were top of the top. Because I guarantee you this, when you do that, those same people will come up to your expectations of them. Emerson said this, every person is entitled to be valued by their best moments. We all have bad moments, don't we? We all do things that may be not so good, but we're all entitled to be valued by the best. And if you put that 10 on their head, they will rise to the equation. In leading others, in your notes, there are 3 things that we cannot possess. We cannot possess these things if we're going to influence and have faith in people. Number 1 is fear. We cannot possess fear. If we are afraid of people, then we cannot confront them. Number 2, dislike. You see, if we dislike people, we should not lead them. That's simple. If you don't like people, you probably need to get out of leadership. And number 3, contempt. If we look down on people, we will not value them. We always have to look up to people. We always have to treat them like a 10, because when we do, we will add value. We will not devalue. Les Gibson, who's an authority on human relations, said that our actions must be genuine. You cannot make the other fellow feel important in your presence if you secretly feel that he is a nobody. Very, very true. You see, it's wonderful when people believe in their leader. It's more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. The question is, do you believe in your people? It's great that they believe in you. It's great that your people trust you. But do you trust your people? Because that's when the leadership really takes another level. So a few notes on this. Number 1, borrowed beliefs have no power. In other words, here's the thing. No faking it till you make it, everyone. If you're not the best leader, when you try to fake it and then think it's going to work until you can figure things out, trust me, it will not work. Borrowed beliefs have no power. Number 2, we become outside what we believe inside. Great, great thought there. Who are you on the inside? Because whatever's on the inside will show on the outside. Number 3, lack of belief in people hurts both the leader and the people. If you don't believe in your people, you might be in the wrong business because you might end up hurting them. And lastly, number 4, the greatest gift a leader gives another person is to express belief in that person when that person doesn't believe in himself. And that's a timing issue, if you remember from our last video together about when do you influence people. It's all about timing. And when you can have that greatest influence in their life is at that point when that person doesn't believe in himself, and when you come in, add value, and express belief in that person. So you have that person you wrote down, or that group of people. Do you do this with that person? How you doing? You feeling good? Because we're going to keep moving on. If you need to pause me, go ahead and do that now. But this is a good opportunity to do that. But we're going to go ahead and move along to number 4. An influencer, number 4, listens to people. You know, this is one of my favorite ways to influence people. I love this poem in your notes. It says, a wise old owl sat in an oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we be like that wise old bird? I love that. Isn't it true? Sometimes we need to be like that wise old bird, and the less we speak, the more we hear, right? So a leader listens to people. John Maxwell developed these acronym for ladder, and he called it the climbing the ladder to better listening. And this is going to help teach us simple ways how to listen to people better. For instance, in your notes here, the L. The L stands for look at the speaker. You see, meanings are not in words, but meanings are in people. So you have to look at people. Look at people like we're doing together now and understand what they're saying, because it's in their people, not in the words they're saying. The A stands for ask questions. You know, this is the quickest, it really is, the quickest way to become a better listener. If you don't know what to ask, think of the general rule. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Even think about what people are most interested the most in, and usually that's themselves. How about ask them about them? Ask them how their family is. Ask them how their children are doing. Because usually when you ask questions, you'll stop talking and they'll start talking, and you'll become a better listener for it. The D stands for don't interrupt. You know, it's just plain rude to step on other people's ideas as it is to step on their toes, isn't it? So don't interrupt people. The second D stands for don't change the subject. I hate that, don't we? When you're talking to someone and somehow the subject just kind of completely goes into another direction, you just kind of feel like you just feel so low, like you're not important. See, that's not leadership, is it? That's not. Listening is wanting to hear what the other person is saying. So don't change the subject. The E stands for emotions. Check your emotions all the time. Leaders must keep current of the undercurrents. Emotions create a storm, and then others will back away. Emotions are a dangerous thing. We have to check your emotions all the time. And then R stands for responsive listening. And I think this is probably one of the most important, because when people feel that their leader no longer listens to them or even responds to them, they will go somewhere else. I believe that this is one of the biggest things that is the most challenging in parenting nowadays, where parents don't listen to the children. They don't listen to their teenagers very well. Adults in general don't listen to our youth. And they're just looking for someone to talk to. They're looking for someone to vent on, and we don't get them. We don't respond to them. We don't pay attention to them. And then eventually they back away and they go somewhere else. But you know what? It happens with adults too. So that's how you climb the ladder to better listening. But on your next page, there's 4 H questions that we have here for you to become a better listener. These are really important. Number 1, what is their heart? These are what you want to ask. Or better yet, this is what you want to sense as they're talking. You want to sense, what is their heart? In other words, where are they right now? What is their heart? Number 2, what is their hope? This tells you what they're going to be like at their very best moment. What do they hope for? What do they dream about? This is what they're going to be like at their best minute of their life. Number 3, what is their hurt? Of course, this is what they talk about, their worst moments and when their worst moment is. And this is a challenging one when you're listening to that, isn't it? And then last, how can I help? So once you find out what their heart is, what their hope is, what their hurt is, then and only then I believe you can say, hey, how can I help you? And that's when you listen to what they have to say. You remember Chili's restaurants? I'm sure most of you have been to a Chili's restaurant. You say, David, why are you bringing up Chili's? We're talking about listening. Well, let me tell you why. Because many years ago, Chili's, maybe a decade ago, was one of the most popular, fastest growing chain restaurants in the country. And their leaders, their business owners, the people who started this restaurant, spoke on how they built it to be one of the most successful restaurants in America. They said that over 80% of their menu that they have in right now is from suggestions of their customers. So if you're in business for yourself and you're watching this, how's that for a business model? Simply ask your customers, what do you want? Take a poll, take a survey. What do you want? You listen to them, and then you give it to them. That's as simple as that. You want to lead people, listen to them, and then offer them the help and assistance and give them what they need. I remember when I was back working at Christ Fellowship in the ministry, and as we built our ministry, one of the questions I would ask our new volunteers and new people that always came in to our group, and if they were with us for maybe a week or two, I would ask them, say, hey, if you could change one thing about this ministry, what would it be? And that was a really tough question to ask because I was the leader. And it was hard for me to hear their answers because I was the leader. But I quickly learned and I quickly realized, and what I quickly found out was that all great leaders became great leaders because they were good listeners. They were good listeners first. And I listened to them, and let me tell you, the insights, the freshness of ideas, the freshness of thoughts that came from my people, because they did certain things better than me. And when I listened to them and when I opened up to them, my ministry exploded. A good influencer, a good leader, always listens. In your notes, there's a wonderful test, a wonderful little quiz that you can take. I encourage you to do this sometime this week on your own time. There's answers are on the next page, kind of like a scoring. You can kind of see where you're at in terms of, are you a good listener? You're going to do that on your own time. But I just want you to reflect back on the person that you wrote down in your notes and ask yourself, am I listening to this person or to this group? Because that's how you know you're going to become a better influencer. Okay, moving on to number 5. This is our last one that we're going to talk about in this session, so we're wrapping it up with number 5. An influencer understands people. Another one of my favorites. An influencer understands people. This quote in your notes from Climbing the Executive Ladder says, few things will pay you bigger dividends than the time and trouble you take to understand people. Almost nothing will add more to your stature as an executive or as a person. Nothing will give you greater satisfaction or bring you more happiness than when you understand people. See, in your notes here, to understand the mind of a person, look at what he's achieved. To understand the heart of a person, look at what he dreams of becoming. So very true. Norm Wright says this. He says that there are 2 basic reasons why relationship fails. Number 1, because fear, which causes us to erect barriers. We know that to be true in our lives. Whenever we fear something, we usually separate from something, and we usually put this dividing barrier right in between so that we protect ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why relationships fail when we have that fear. And then number 2 is selfishness, which causes us to focus on ourselves rather than focus on other people. We don't want these 2 in our lives because in our relationships we need to seek to understand other people, and fear and selfishness are what drive that understanding away. So here's 7 things, the keys to understanding. How do you lead people? By reading people. These are 7 keys, 7 ways that you can read people so that you can learn to understand them the most. Number 1, background. I always love to find out people's background. Like I said, ask them questions. Where did they come from? Who's in their family? How are they doing? How's their children doing? I like to find out their journey. I love to find out where they came from. It's very important for me to understand the other person. Number 2, personality. I need to understand their personality, who they are, what makes them tick. Number 3, giftedness. I need to know what that person is gifted in. To understand who they are and how I can best lead and serve them, I got to understand what they're gifted in. You ever notice how it's easy, because I sure do, how it's easy for the person who's the gifted one to look at someone else and say, why can't they do that? In other words, why can't I'm an organized person. I have a system for everything. I start my Christmas shopping like in January because I have a system for getting it done by December. So when I look at other people when they rush to the store on Black Friday or when they're rushing around on Thanksgiving like chickens with their heads cut off, I always wonder, why is it so difficult for these people to do this? But you know what? Because I'm gifted in organization and I'm gifted in systems. And I wonder, what's wrong with those people? You ever felt like that? We need to find out what people are gifted in to understand who they really are and how to lead them. Number 4, the keys to their life. Keys to their life. This is an interesting one. What do they cry about? What do they sing about every day? What do they dream about? What makes them tick? What gets them going? If I opened the door to their heart, what would do it? If I made a dream come true, would that be what opens the door to their heart? Would that be the key? We need to understand that in people. Number 5, Relationships. I always love to know who people's relationships are. I've always learned from a young age, you become like the people you hang out with and the books that you read. So if you want to grow, read better books. If you want to grow and you want to become something different, start hanging out with different people, because you become like who you hang out with and the books that you read. So what are the relationships in these people's lives? It'll teach you a lot about who they are as a person. Number 6, influencers. Influencers in their life. What are the influencers in your life? Is it a person? Is it a thing? What gets you going? What excites you? What gets you going for the day? What influences you? I like to know that so I can understand them. Number 7 is context. Context is, where are you now? I need to know, I need to understand that, because I can't lead somebody. I mean, I understand their background, I understand their journey, I get what their personality is, but if I don't know what the context of the situation they're in now, I can't seek to help them better. And number 8, and this is a big one, is attitude. I want to know what their attitude is, because I only want to hang out with positive people. I only want positive, exciting, full of energy people on my team. Because if you're not positive, if you're not excited, and you're not full of energy, you're going to drag me down, and I can't be drugged down because I got too many people relying on me to help them to grow and for me to add value. So I need to understand what your attitude is. See, in your notes here, there's 2 things. First, you have to see what others see. And that's a relationship. When you see what others see, that's your relationship. When you get on their ground, when you get into their shoes, when you step out of your world and into their world and understand who they are, when you relate and you connect with them, that is a relationship. And I guarantee you this, people will not reach for the future until they touch the past. You have to get to know them, walk in their shoes, see where they're coming from, and see where they're going. But here's the second part of this. Before they see what you see, and that's leadership. So you have to see what others see before they see what you'll see. When they see what you see, that's what leadership is. When you see what they see, that's what a relationship is. So I hope that you were able to learn something. I look forward to our next time together. Today we talked a little bit about integrity. We talked about how an influencer nurtures people. An influencer has faith in people, listens to people, understands people, has integrity in themselves. Go through your notes. Review these. Write down where you need to work on. Maybe even think of some questions that we can talk about, because in our next session together in person, we're going to be going over these 5 topics plus many more. So until then, thanks for joining us, and thank you for your commitment. I am so proud that you've chosen to do this with us, and we're on our way to transformation in our leadership. See you at our next group. Bye-bye.